Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hot Girls Learn Hockey podcast. My name is Sarah. If you're new here, this is the show where we talk about all things hockey, the what to knows, the who to knows, and everything in between. And it is Olympics week. I mean, it's been Olympics week, but we're getting into gear with all good things Olympics. We got ice skating, we've got skiing, snowboarding, curling. Still don't know really what that is. And of course, what we all, at least what I'm looking forward to most, men and women's ice hockey. So I figure for at least this week and for not next week, obviously, because I won't upload episode next week, but the next episode, doing a little bit of Olympic related things. I already covered the Miracle on Ice USA versus Soviet Union game from the 1980 Winter Olympics. But I did want to go over, because to give backstory on what inspired today's topic, I was at a social gathering of friends, and I was explaining to one of my boyfriend's friends that I was like super excited for the Winter Olympics, because he had asked me like, oh, you excited to go watch like the hockey men's hockey team, whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really excited, especially since this is the first like time we've had NHL players there since like we were in high school. And he was really confused. He's like, don't they play in every Olympic like tournament? I'm like, no, they actually don't. Which surprised him. He's like, well, what else do they do? And I explained like the NHL All-Star games, you know, it's things that along that line, and off like the fact that, you know, it was a while between the first time that hockey was actually played in the Winter Olympics and the first time NHL players could play, which I will go into. So that is what inspired me picking this topic for today's episode. But before we get into it, I do feel the need to do some explanations about the title of the show, which I fear that comprehension is lacking when people read the title. Also, this will be the third time I've had to explain it, so I really am going to dumb it down and use simple words, because I've gotten comments, I've gotten messages, and so I just want to really quickly touch on this. So first, let's get into that real quick. So let's read the name of the show. The name of the show is called Hot Girls Learn Hockey. If I was alluding to the fact that I am a quote unquote hot girl in the sense of conventionally hot female, the show would be called A Hot Female Sits in Front of the Camera and Explains Different Aspects of Ice Hockey, which is a mouthful. And is also not the name of the show. Or it would be called A Hot Girl Teaches You About Hockey, which, again, does not quite roll off the tongue like Hot Girls Learn Hockey. So, backstory to the title. It is alluding to, an inside joke between a friend and I, where every time we would go to a Sharks game, we would always, you know, yell out to each other like, oh my gosh, hot girls go watch hockey, hot girls go support their local NHL teams or their local beer league teams, stuff like that. It was a joke. And then it also is a nod to the whole trend of, you know, hot girls don't gatekeep, hot girls help other girls, hot girls go on nature hikes, like that whole trend of like doing this activity or having this interest inherently makes you a hot girl. Whether you yourself are a girl or a woman, it's like a funny little thing. And so the name Hot Girls Learn Hockey insinuates that you, the listener, the viewer, who is seeking out learning about hockey, are a hot girl. So you're the hot girls, really. And so everyone giving me all this honestly, if I'm being real, unnecessary feedback on my hotness. I don't really care if you think that me, little me, is hot. The only man who I care about thinking I'm hot is my boyfriend of 6 years, and believe you me, he is very satisfied in that department. So, sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this, and Dad. That's that on that. And I don't want to fucking hear any more about it. Okay, this is like the third time I've had to explain the title of the show. And I fear, like I said before, comprehension is lacking. Maybe it's a lack of education. I don't know. But that is all I'm going to say about that. Now let's get into today's episode. No Sharks Cup today. We do have my Stanley with some water and electrolytes in it. Because boy, have I just been so tired lately. So I need a little bit of boost of energy. So grab a snack, grab a little drinky drink if you want to, and let's just get into today's episode. Cheers. Now I feel that I can't really give the history of NHL players being allowed to participate in the Winter Olympics without just first giving the timeline of just like men's hockey and then women's hockey being played in the Winter Olympics. So it was in 1920 in that year's Summer Olympics that ice hockey, men's ice hockey specifically, was first played, and then it was the following Winter Olympics in 1924 when it was permanently put into the Winter Olympics because I don't know, hockey, you think of winter, you don't really think of summer. Summer is the off season for a lot of leagues. So that's a little history of that. And then 1998 was the first year that women's ice hockey was added into the Winter Olympics. And now before the NHL would allow their players to take the 2-week break to go and participate and play for their home country, what players were competing in the Olympics before that? Because it's a really big gap. It's 1924 to 1994/1998, but we'll get into that. So who was playing? Well, if you don't remember from the Miracle on Ice episode that I did, like the USA's team, a lot of other like Canadian teams and other countries' teams for the Winter Olympics were comprised of quote unquote amateur athletes. Case in point, 1980 Olympics was made up of college hockey players, or hockey players in sort of minor league or amateur league teams. The exception that I could really find was the Soviet Union, which, like I did mention in the episode that I keep referencing, were fully grown men that were pretty much employed by their government to be good at hockey, to practice, to represent in tournaments and championships, and to bring home gold. That was always the expectation, was to win for the Soviet Union while representing the Soviet Union. And so that was kind of the whole deal of the players that have comprised of the men's hockey teams in the case of the Winter Olympics and all these years. But it was not until the year 1995 that the Olympics committee, panel, whatever the fuck they're called, and the NHL and the NHLPA, which if you don't know what that is, it's the Players Association, pretty much the group that makes sure that players are being fairly treated and their contracts are being upheld and stuff like that, came to an agreement to allow for the NHL to have a 2-week break every February of an Olympic year, so that they can send NHL players to go and represent their respective home countries. So while yes, the 1998 Olympics, or Winter Olympics, I should say, were the first Olympics to have like a ton of NHL players and actually have a break in the NHL season, like a break built into the season specifically for this. In the 1994 Olympics, they did have NHL players competing, but when you look at the rosters, it's really maybe like one or two guys, and they didn't have this break put in. That's why they only had like one or two players in the Olympics that year. And then they came up with the agreement the following year, 95, to be able to lead us up to 1998, which were the Winter Olympics in, I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong, Nagano, Japan. And this was the first, like I said, instance of NHL putting a break for the Olympics in that season's schedule. And NHL players got on a plane to Japan to go and compete and represent for their respective home countries. Canada, Sweden, USA, anything like, whatever team they were from, or whatever country they were from, I guess I should say. And like I mentioned earlier, the 1998 Olympics were also the first for women's ice hockey. Obviously, they didn't have a major league like the NHL at this time, because the PWHL was not established until 2023. But they still had, collegiate players, minor league players going to represent women's hockey at this year's Olympics as well. And so in the 98 Winter Olympics, the Czech Republic would go on to take home gold for the men's hockey, with 11 out of their 23-man roster being NHL players. And for the ladies, Team USA would take home gold that year. And after this first trial run of the break and the NHL sending over their guys to Japan, it was a really good, first time doing this. And so the NHL commissioner was like, all right, let's just do it again. And so then the use of NHL players in the Winter Olympics would continue in the following Olympics: the 2002 in Salt Lake City here in the US, in 2006 in Turin, Italy, in 2010, which was in Vancouver, Canada, which was the first instance of the Winter Olympics taking place in the city that also hosted a NHL team, the Vancouver Canucks, obviously, during this period where NHL players were allowed to go and compete. And then also in the 2014 Olympics in Sochi, Russia. And then after this is where we kind of take a break from the NHL allowing their players to go and compete in the 2018 Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea. The NHL commissioner really did not want to be having their players go all the way to South Korea to be competing and doing this break. So instead of sending players to South Korea, they did the 2018 NHL All-Star Game. And then they were supposed to have players go and compete in the 2022 Beijing Olympics as well. But if you don't remember, there's a lot of changes and a lot of not uproar, but just safety concerns with these Olympics, especially because of the whole, if you forgot, if you weren't conscious or sentient during 2020, there was COVID. So the NHL said, no, we don't want to send our men out there to go and compete. So we're just not going to send our guys out there. So they also did not compete in the 2022 Olympics, which now brings us up to dates. This year, 2026, obviously the Winter Olympics in Milan, Italy. The road leading up to it was a little rocky because if you don't remember, we didn't even know if the NHL would allow their guys to go and play, because the NHL commissioner was like, if the rink's not built, they no play. And I think that might have just lit a fire under the Olympics ass. Or all their asses, I guess, because the rink was completed. Whether or not you think it's a good one, I don't know. I really don't have any opinions on it. It's worked so far. I've been watching the women's hockey preliminary rounds, and it seems to be working fine. We'll see. I don't know, man. But yes, this year's Olympics is the first time since 2014 that NHL players have gotten on a little plane and then gone off to wherever that year's Olympics is and competed for their home countries. Team Canada is fucking stacked. if I do say so myself, I obviously had a hand, and I handpicked every single man on that team. I wish I did, because then I would have made some different changes. But it's a stacked team, and this year is also the first year that the PWHL, remember how I mentioned it was established in 2023? Well, this is their first year of sending their players to play in the Winter Olympics. Not that a lot of these girls, they've obviously competed prior to this in their own teams and leagues that they were playing for before being drafted into the PWHL and playing for those teams. So this isn't their first rodeo for the Olympics, but it is their first rodeo while representing their respective PWHL teams. And that, everybody, is the very brief history of NHL players playing in the Winter Olympics. This is kind of going to be a shorter episode. I'm probably going to clock in around maybe like 15 minutes or so, or 16, but be on the lookout pretty soon after, the date of this upload, for a little episode that I'm going to be featured on with the only other show that's ever had me on. So be excited and on the lookout for that. I don't know when that will be coming out. Probably soon after this episode, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, either way, I'll be posting about it on my Instagram page for the show. But yeah, that is it for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. Like I mentioned, next episode will be another Olympics-esque themed one, even though it will be after the Olympics. But you know what? That's just the way the cookie crumbles, okay? But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It does help out a lot. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please make sure to give the show a good rating. You can also follow the show's TikTok page. It's at HGLHpod, or the show's Instagram page, which is at Hot Girls Learn Hockey. Thank you guys so much. I love you so much, and I'll see you next one. Bye.